Well, I just went along with my father to his operas. I guess like almost every week. I was very fascinated by the orchestra world, especially the pit. In the last 2.5 years, as I've also mostly worked in operas. Before I was very much into symphony orchestra, but there was a part of me that was very much fascinated by, I don't know, like all those things you find backstage in operas, all those costumes, all those stuff which is standing around on stage. Everything is very, very fantastic, and there's a lot of, I don't know, like fantasy around everything. And the orchestra where my father worked is an especially nice orchestra. The people there are very, very, very nice. And now that I know more than one orchestra in Berlin, I can say that they are very special indeed. And they made me feel at home in a way when I was still a kid. And later on, when I started playing with them every once in a while, the feeling continued to be at home. And I'm really sure that back then, that was the moment when I realized I just really want to be part of this. I love being in the audience, but I also knew instantly that I wanted to be like on the other side in the pit or on stage. My father was a violinist. He was a concertmaster there. My mom also studied violin, but she's teaching now for a really long time already. My brother is a violinist. My stepsister is a violinist. My grandparents are organ players, so there's a lot of music in my family. My dad tried to give me one, for sure, very important advice, but I was way too young to listen. I remember when I was about 8 years old, maybe, started when I was 6, he was practicing with me, and he was playing an exercise which was like about 1 page long, and he wanted me, like, I could barely even just read the notes, but he wanted me to immediately like read the bar after the one I'm playing, or even like the second bar after the one I'm in already. So he wanted me to look ahead, because that's what you do in an orchestra, right? But I was 8 years old, and I had only been playing the violin for 2 years, and I really couldn't do it. And it frustrated me so much, and I just started crying and ran out of the room. I think my parents did best, like concerning my career, is that they never pushed me in any direction. I mean, they showed me, that's probably one thing, they showed me the smallest percentage of discipline that you need in order to become a musician. I think I really practiced every day, starting at the age of 6, maybe just 10 minutes a day, but I did it every day, like brushing your teeth. And it was very normal. Everyone was practicing, so I was practicing too. And they didn't ask me, do you want to practice or not? I just did it. And otherwise, they never told me what to do. Like in any case, it was always my decision. And I guess that a lot of people who come from musician families, they often lose interest in music because they are pushed on stage and they are pushed into competitions and to famous teachers who are hard on them. And my parents never did that. They just let me do my thing, and I was always interested enough in music and in maintaining a certain level that I just made every decision by myself. Well, I guess it's the thing that finally brought me to the beginning of my coaching training, you probably already know that I had a huge problem with my right and then both my hands on stage. For years, in very different intervals, my right hand was getting numb on stage in concert. I couldn't really move my fingers anymore the way you need to move them. And at some point it even spread to my left hand as well, which is very inconvenient. And it led to the point when I had to stop a concert in the middle of a movement. I was playing a Beethoven quintet, and I was like a quintet with 2 violas, and there was a part coming up in the third movement which had a start of a solo, a viola solo. And we were approaching that part, and I had to play the solo, so like lead into the next part. And I knew I couldn't do it. My hands weren't working anymore. And then I just had to stop. And I had to tell my colleagues on stage that I can't go on because my hands are numb. And then I had to turn to the audience and tell them I can't go on playing, which, as you can imagine, is like the worst nightmare anyone can have. And well, then I needed to leave the stage because I really couldn't move my fingers anymore probably, and my colleagues decided to continue the concert without me with another piece. And the worst part is that the room where we played the concert was in a very nice castle, which also had the rooms where we were staying, and my room was directly above the concert hall. So while the other ones were finishing the concert, I was lying in my bed above the concert hall, listening to them finishing the concert. And I thought I could just drown myself in the river, which was nearby. It was really horrible. And that was the moment when I thought, okay, something really needs to change. I can't go on with that much pressure in my head, because I was already sure that the problem is not a physical one. I had been to the hospital several times. I had been checked in every possible scenario, and I knew it was something psychosomatic, something emotional, an emotion showing itself through my body. And that's when I started to think that I really need to take better care of myself. And now that I'm kind of over this, I'm grateful for this moment, but in the very moment, it was so horrible. I never felt worse than that. Yeah, exactly. Someone recommended the method to me, someone who experienced the same problem with those numb hands, but it was totally coincidental. And after having tried so many different things, which I all liked, but they just didn't help me, this finally helped me. And this was then my then the idea came to me that I could just start by learning this and probably starting to help people through this technique as well. I'm really sure that I want to learn more things in the next years that could benefit other people and that I could benefit from as well. But there's a start now, and I choose it because I had such a big success that I can't compare to any other thing that I've tried. So that's why I'm so convinced of it. I'm gonna try. First, let me say that I can not give like a specific scientific explanation here, because it's largely based on one single idea that isn't yet proven. And everyone out there who's listening just needs to decide themselves if they want to believe it's true or not. And the thesis is that thoughts can influence matter. So that's something that's quite common by now, but there is no scientific proof. I mean, some people try to prove it, and then they don't get results, or they get a result and other people are then saying your result is wrong. So I personally believe that thoughts have a great power, and I could name some experiments which also underline this, but I don't think it really matters, because some people are going to say it's bullshit and some are going to say, yeah, of course it makes total sense to me. So the idea is that because we are all made of atoms, we have an electromagnetic field which is like somewhere around us, and it stores experiences, it stores memories, and it can store them in a neutral way, then just leave them. It can store them in a positive way, then just don't touch them, leave them there, but also in a negative way. And that's the thing we are looking at with the Chinese quantum method. So essentially, we use a muscle test, which comes from kinesiology. We detect energy mix-ups in another person's field. So if you are my coachee, I'm gonna try to lock into your field and check if you have resistances on certain concepts. For example, if you had trouble playing on stage, I would check if you have an energy mix-up on the subject of success. If you have one there, then this doesn't help us that much yet, because success is like such a huge subject, and we would need to look at it from various angles, and we need to look at it from your perspective. We need to see who influenced you, and we need to be very creative, because most of the time our troubles are influenced by things we don't know they are influenced by. And that's the thing which makes CQM special, that you can find those influences which aren't really close by. You wouldn't get to them if you were just thinking, oh, what might be the reason that I have this trouble? And cleaning up in your energy field makes your energy flow freely again, and then there's nothing standing in the way between you and, for example, success anymore. Sounds a little bit like magic. It is a lot of work though, because you need to find the right concepts to check, you need to find the right concepts to neutralize, you need to be open, you need to be creative, and nevertheless, it's a very fun process which can tell you a lot about yourself. And for me, the results have always been astounding. So I have a lot of fun using it for myself and using it for other people as well. Scary. The first time I played as a solo viola was the Tannhäuser Opera, and there are 3 acts which are in my case divided with 2 breaks. So there's 1 hour, then a break, 1 hour, 1 more break, and 1 more hour. And the first act was really horrible. Of course, I had made up my mind about how it might feel, and I thought, okay, if I'm sitting in this chair, I might be able to see the concertmaster better, I might be able to hear better, I will have better contact with the conductor, and I will just have like a very strong idea of the structure of the piece. And then I was sitting there and I was so lost. I really didn't get any structure idea. I was just trying to swim into the right direction. So the first act was very overwhelming, and when I went into the break, I really wasn't sure if I could go on. But then in the second act, there were some parts which are very important for the viola section. They are not really hard, but they are rhythmically challenging, and the solo viola really needs to lead the section, otherwise it's just gonna totally fall apart. And this I had practiced for myself, and I had visualized how I'm gonna do that, and it worked out really well. And then in the third act I was super relaxed, and I just enjoyed the music, and it was like musical present for me. And since I could witness my own development through this 3-4 hour opera, I realized, okay, you can start one piece and feel like you can't do it, and then in the middle of it you can feel suddenly very self-empowered, and in the end you can be very relaxed. So you don't even need a lot of time. You're totally allowed to screw up in the beginning if it's totally new. The only thing is that you should try to get better as fast as possible, and if it's even possible during one single piece, then, well, that's good, right? It's been a long time ago, but of course I recall it. It was actually a very special occasion because it was my university orchestra, and we had already played our concert, and the day after Simon Rattle came to rehearse with us, just for fun, to put it like this. And I remember when he entered the room and he sat down, the first thing he said was, hello, good morning. I'm gonna ask impossible things from you all day now. And probably some people might be annoyed by this kind of phrase, but I really liked it. And then there was like another incident, which is just an anecdote, but he wanted the viola to play a certain section. We were playing the concerto for orchestra from Bartók, and he gave the entrance, but somehow the other violas were confused or whatever, so I was the only one actually entering and playing. And since I was so motivated, I had like a really big tone and there was a lot of expression in it. Of course, I stopped after like 3 seconds when I realized I was alone, but then he pointed at me and he was like, yeah, that's how it's supposed to sound. So this didn't happen very often to me, but that was my very impressive memory with Simon Rattle. He has a capacity to give an orchestra a structure within you can be totally free. So what he did with us was that he grounded the orchestra in a way that every soloist and every group who was playing a specific important voice, they could be completely free, and everyone else knew what was happening around them, and there was no confusion, but still so much freedom and so much flexibility, and the music became so alive because of that. And I've met some other few conductors which were that great as well, but he's definitely one of the best conductors I was ever able to work with. Well, very differently, of course. In some cases, when I was rejected, I actually went to the 3rd round and I was one of the finalists. My very, very first audition for a real job. I was sick the days before and I had like 3 or 4 very long Tristan rehearsals in my opera academy. Even I think in the morning of the audition, I still had a Tristan rehearsal. And I was super sick, and then I went anyways and I played and I got to the last round and I was super happy with the result. I didn't even know if I could play the first round because I was so weak, and I did really well in each of the rounds, and so I was completely happy with that. Then there were other occasions, for example, when I played in the opera house where I was doing my academy. I really liked the orchestra and I would have loved to work there. And when I played for a fixed position and I also got to the finals, but I didn't get the place, of course I was depressed because I just really wanted to stay there. Then there were other times, like for example, I won this job in Hamburg about a year ago, but afterwards I did 2 more auditions, just like for fun and to try if I could win another job as well. And those 2 auditions went really bad. I don't know why, but I think I didn't even get to the second round or something. And although I had already won my job and I was happy with it, I felt so frustrated and so depressed. So to sum up, there is no system to how I felt. Sometimes it felt reasonable to be very happy or to be depressed, but sometimes I was also like depressed when there was no real reason. So there is no system behind it, I'm afraid. Well, to be honest, I haven't thought about that for a very, very long time. I started studying when I was 19, and until I was about 25, I'm 26, I think I cut out this whole topic of reflecting what's going on inside me out of my life. I just didn't ask the questions, so I wouldn't need to listen to the answers. And what was happening with my hands was my personal warning sign for, hey, there's something going on with you which isn't great. And I don't know, I think for a very long time I had one very straightforward goal: to learn as much and to be as productive every day as I can. So like every single second I was free, I was practicing. And there was simply no time for me to reflect on how I felt about all this stuff. And at the latest, when I started my first job, like the full-time orchestra job I had won, I realized that I cannot just like go along with what people expect from me anymore. So especially in this orchestra, I felt like what they are asking from me is really not what I want to give. What's important for them is really not important for me, and what's super essential for me is totally unimportant for them. So that really wasn't a match, but it made me realize that there is actually a very strong voice inside of me telling me what I really need and what I can't compromise on. But before, I have not given that voice any room for a very long time. And now that I give it room, I realize in how many ways I've not listened to it and in how many ways I should have listened. But I've really committed to the journey to be more attentive to what's going on inside of me. And it's a lot of work and I'm still in the beginning. But I'm sure I'm going to stick to it because I know now what the benefit is. Well, I mean, during summer festivals, I loved to play chamber orchestra without conductor. So if I could choose my best memory, it would be this. Sitting in a small orchestra, not depending on a conductor, being super attentive, listening to everyone, really playing together. That's the ideal. But from like the professional orchestras I've played in, I think I'm very much in love with opera right now. I love that every evening there's something else happening. There are so many different conductors, so many different singers. And there's always a surprise somewhere and you need to react and be very much awake. And that makes concentration a lot easier than if you just recall the same automatism every night. So if I could choose, I guess I would love to play in an opera orchestra full time again. I think I just ran against a wall hard enough to realize that the system I was using didn't work anymore. I don't actually know what the answer is. I think I just used what little bravery was left inside me and I made small experiments. So I was sitting in the orchestra and I felt like right now it wouldn't ruin the whole performance if I made a small mistake. So I let go a little bit. And I tried to really feel how much space I have now, how much more free I feel. And there's obviously a benefit in playing in an ensemble where you feel like you won't be killed if you make one single mistake, which was the case for me. But I think I really just let down my guard percentage by percentage. And I tried to write a new narrative, maybe. I mean, I'm still in the process of writing it, obviously. Although I call myself the liberated musician on Instagram, it's really much more a goal that I try to get to than something I already am. But again, power of thoughts. I think it might be better to call myself this way already than saying the one who would really like to try to be the liberated musician. I've just tried to be very attentive to those, let's call them negative examples of people who seem to be super successful, but when you look behind their stage or like behind the curtain, you see so much trouble, you see so many deep holes and so much darkness. And I simply felt at some point that I can't keep thinking the way I did before, and I cannot really explain how exactly that felt, but it was so clear that I just could not listen to it. Well, I think first of all, you should not listen to the people who tell you that you can't talk about it. I've heard that a lot of times. Better don't tell anyone who might be able to, or who might have power over you in a certain situation. Like, never talk to your colleagues in an orchestra if you're an academist, because if you win a job there, they already know something about you which they shouldn't know, and then they might vote against you after a trial year. And I never listened to that because I was very good at finding the people I can trust, and I just talked to them and not the people I was feeling insecure with. And another thing maybe is that you should try to find out, however, with CQM or another method, of course there are a lot of ways, you should try to find out why exactly do I do the things that I do? Why exactly do I think the way I do? And when I say find out exactly, I mean like super specific to the point. There are so many things that have happened in our biography, like super small moments which have huge impacts on us. If you have felt like you've disappointed your parents at the age of 5 because you couldn't do what they wanted you to do, this might be the reason why you feel like you're not worthy at the age of 25. These are extremely small moments compared to a whole life which matters so much, and you really need to open your eyes and think about it not just once but maybe 100 times until you've found those little pins in your personal biography which might be the reason why you feel like you need to perform at a certain level, why you think that you always need to sound like a freshly pressed CD. If you've ever recorded a CD like professionally with an orchestra, you know how it works. Like, they rarely play a piece even once through. They just do like those little pieces which they put together into the perfect version. Nothing there is real, nothing there is authentic. But But when we listen to the violin concerto, the clarinet concerto, the viola concerto, we think that this is how it sounded on the first try. And I think if you spend enough time just giving those thoughts room in your system, for example, that no CD out there is actually real. Nothing you hear on a CD is the first try, so you don't need to compare your first try to the CD, which would make you super depressed if you did, obviously. If you just give these thoughts room and you let them really sink in, which won't happen in a week or in a month or probably even not in half a year, there will be a significant change. But it needs time and it really needs dedication. You can't just tell yourself, okay, for 1 week I'm gonna take care of myself and I'm gonna try to not criticize myself too much and I'm gonna try to not listen to the people who tell me I'm not talented. It's not gonna have an effect. You need to do it for several months until you see the very first result, which might seem like very hard to do, but if you're going to stick to it, then for sure you're going to have results, and they are going to be very important for your life, because we are all still so young. We have like 40 years of work ahead, and right now we think if we need a year to finish or even start a certain process that's going to be valuable for our whole professional life, then we think, oh my god, 1 year, that's so much. But compared to the 40 years in which you are going to be either miserable or unable to take care of yourself physically, mentally, whatsoever. So I think it's worth the time and it's worth the dedication for sure.